How to optimize for better programmatic outcomes. The discussion will be led by our moderator, Suraj Nambiar, Managing Partner and Head of Media, Tonic Worldwide. He will be joined by the speakers, Alakshit Tripathi, Industry Head, Consumer Packaged Goods, InMobi, Altamash Khan, DGM, Digital Marketing Homecare, Godrej Consumer Products, Manish Dubey, Chief Marketing Officer, ICICI Prudential Life Insurance Company, Om Jha, Associate Director, Media, PepsiCo India, Priyanka Gandhi, Associate Director and Head, Integrated Marketing, Communications and E-Commerce, Colgate-Palmolive India, Shashishekhar Mukherjee, Head, Digital Marketing, Reckitt. Over to you, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And welcome, everybody. I think this is going to be a very interesting session. I myself am looking forward to it. And the topic that we have is basically on programmatic and how the entire session, the platform has evolved and what we are kind of looking at for the future as well. And how do we optimize for a better programmatic future. And we have people from various industries, FMCG, consumer goods, and also from the BFSI and from the ad tech we have as well. So what we will do is we will start a small icebreaker session wherein we will start off with a question in terms of how programmatic has evolved in everyone's respective industry. And also you can use that session to in terms of informing what you guys do in the session. So welcome everybody. So with no random, I'll just take a name we can start off with. So we can start off with, of course, the ad tech industry. Alakshit, are you there?
Yeah, Suraj.
Yeah, great. Hi. So you can start off. You can just start off with saying that how what's the evolution of programmatic in your industry from the time it started to mobile, what it's doing now? Yeah.
Sure. So we started as a company 10 years back, right? And there was no programmatic back in the day. And gradually it started picking things up, and then it started in the US, etc. And we started to feel that it's going to come to India very soon, and that soon was getting delayed every year, right? And it's a very recent trend that we have seen a sudden explosion on programmatic side, right? So and it happens when the brands start to put in the money, right? And then you see all the players also getting evolved, and then they putting in money. For example, if you look at Pakistan as a market, there are very few players which have access to DV360, right? I think hardly 3 agencies. So that is the condition that we were in, and then gradually we picked up from there, and a lot of brands are putting in money. Everyone wants to go programmatic, even if they are not. They want to be enabled, but again, while there is a transparency into the system, it is a complex piece, right, for everyone to understand, given the different players that are involved, and more such players are coming into play. We are having better tracking mechanism with Nielsen DAR, with DCM tracking, etc., etc. So it's a much evolved system now.
Great. Altamash, are you there? Yeah. Hi. From a Godrej perspective, what do you think? How does programmatic has evolved?
So, like what Alakshit said, right? It has taken some years for programmatic to actually evolve, and especially if I have to talk to you about it in the CPG front and also from the Godrej point of view, for us programmatic becomes important, and the journey has become important with the way we've tried to experiment, and you will see how you can bring in multiple aspects together of the entire media mix together on one platform. So which has always been the challenge, that how do you get that one holistic view of all the buying which you're doing? Can it be streamlined? It made the buying process very, very simple, which is a very complex procedure at the back end. It helps us bring a lot of efficiency, and at the most important part is that how do you create those real-time signals and optimization very effective. So programmatic has helped us do that in that genre, and And we see that journey gone, very higher, and from being only a display heavy kind of a medium to now programmatic allowing you to do video, audios, all the other formats, like, bringing all formats together. That's, I think, one of the biggest, enhancement probably you'll say that, it has helped in the programmatic buying as a platform.
Okay. Yes, and from Manish, from a BFSI perspective, I'm sure that there is a huge change that programmatic has played. What's your take on that?
Yeah, Suraj, thanks. BFSI does have a little bit of an positional advantage, because we can see the customer from end to end, right from the top end of the funnel to the bottom end. Now, what this has allowed us to do is to play with the data and play with the developments in the programmatic world a bit more. And what we have done from our side is to try and partner with the best in the industry. And as a result of which, we have been learning. And I think this is only a start. And a lot of things change almost on a regular basis. So the learning continues. But the interesting bit is that we are now able to understand to a certain extent the power of programmatic. And that kind of, from a BFSI perspective, that brings us, in a very interested kind of set of clients into the whole piece.
Yeah, great. So coming from BFSI directly to, let's say, consumer goods. So Om, from a Pepsi perspective, what's your take on how programmatic has evolved? I'm not sure if he's there. Om, I think he's dropped. Priyanka's there. So Priyanka, what about you? Again, from Colgate's FMCG's perspective, how has programmatic evolved?
Yeah, so programmatic has evolved tremendously, for us as well. I mean, from a CPG perspective and for categories like us, and we've been increasingly focusing on it. I'd like to call out two big sort of use cases where we see it playing a role. One is we've started looking at it helps us to sort of play a role through the consumer journey, right? So and we sort of work through a consumer journey of, let's say, driving building awareness, consideration, purchase. It helps us to measure outcomes across these three. More specifically, importantly, on CNP, where I guess traditionally, when it was a very sort of TV-led world and a non-programmatic world, the focus was more on driving reach and awareness. So that's one big area of change where it is playing an increasing role. Second, if you look at our categories, our portfolios are mixed, right? We still continue to have brands, big brands, mainstream brands, which have massive reach, and huge consumption. I mean, we are present, we are present in millions and millions of households, almost, let's say, the entire country is using us, right? So there is, of course, merit and value for us to use, mass mediums like television, which still continue to play a role. And I don't want to, in this panel, sort of, I want to bring to light the fact that there is still a role for mass media for CPG industry, right? While the topic is still programmatic. But on the other side, there are, what it is allowing us to do is there are niche benefits that we are able to now communicate and build through audiences, right? Niche brands. And this is helping us do those targeted, develop those targeted, benefits and brands in a much sharper way. And maybe I can talk you through some examples at a later stage once we sort of, hear from everybody else.
So thank you. Thanks. We have Shashishekhar as well. Are you there, Shashi?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Suraj.
Hey. So again, from Reckitt's point of view, how has programmatic evolved for you and your brands in the company?
Sure. Most of the things are already spoken, but I'll just try to sort of give you an evolution. So it started somewhere in 17 onwards, right, where when the proliferation of OTTs happened, right? Because being a FMCG player, videos are extremely important, and how do you sort of with doing market penetration exercises, you need to ensure that the reach is maximized. So till YouTube was there, honestly, things were pretty sorted, right? But the moment the OTT started coming into the picture, it was very difficult to even manage frequency at a very base problem level, right? So so that is the time when we started looking at programmatic video to begin with, And from there, we sort of, then started building on what Priyanka was talking about, a full funnel approach that is, from top funnel to mid and to bottom funnel. So I think it's been a great journey. And so we've been constantly maximizing our programmatic thing and minimizing the direct buys. So that's been the pretty much journey from, then to here. Yeah.
Sure, great. Thank you. Is Om there? I think Om is dropped off. I'm not sure if it's come back in. Okay, great. We'll anyway continue. I think if there anyone in the audience have any particular questions, I think we can have a small Q&A session as well, where we can read out certain comments that might come up over there. Yeah, great. So moving on. I think that's wonderful in terms of understanding how programmatic has evolved in everyone's brands that they work with, and of course from an industry point of view as well. I think from a supply chain or from a complex structure, do you think advertisers are preferring to adopt this channel of media buying now more openly? I think this can go to Alakshit actually from a publisher point of view. Or partner point of view, saying that, do you feel that programmatic has evolved into much better in terms of adoption from advertisers and brands vis-a-vis what it was in the past?
Definitely. So it has, right? And basically the complexity lies in the fact that there is transparency, right? So you are giving under the hood view to the end consumer. So for example, now Shashi would get to know who my publisher is, who the SSP is, what the exchange is, what is the DSP. So you are getting to know the entire stack. And then you are getting to know the all the partners which are playing a role in tracking, etc. as well, right? And then there are DMPs. So if you hear about it in one go, it looks like there are so many moving parts. But
right.
But the getting to know about those moving parts, you can now control your car better, right? You know when it breaks down, where it has exactly broken down, and that's something that you have to fix. And that's exactly in line with what Priyanka and Shashi both were mentioning, right? That you have the full funnel view, right?
Yeah.
So you know the top of the funnel, the bottom of the funnel, etc. So the complexity, yeah, it's there, but it is because of the fact that it is transparent. It's no more a black box.
Yeah. Great. Manish, anything from a BFSI perspective, from adoption of programmatic and the complexity? Because I know that, we all know that BFSI as a category also looks at performance as a big metric. And how does programmatic actually play a part in that part?
Yeah, sure, Suraj. I think first let's start with the basics. I think in our old days, and what Priyanka was also very rightly mentioning, the old format media which still exists, we were, at one point in time getting, really worried about, look, channels have really been increasing, media has got fragmented, and there are 500 channels and so many publications. But simply in terms of the width of the media, X, whatever X was, and X was itself quite fragmented, X has become 100X. So many websites, so many apps, so many digital destinations. So simply the width has increased of the media. And then the second part of marketing and advertising is the content. So the content wise, today we are planning on audience, which means we are trying to give relevant content to the audience so that the audience is actually, finds it meaningful and it's in their interest. The audience definition, which used to be only say SEC A, B, C, D and A1 and then A2, and we were really worried about that. And now today N is equal to 1. So each and every person is a separate audience. So if you simply see if X has moved to 100X and Y has moved to 100Y, then simply the problem of X into Y has become 10,000X into Y. And this is just in a manner of speaking. So how do you handle such complexity? You can't handle it on a phone call basis or on an Excel sheet basis or anything. So it required a bit of a sophisticated engine to come in. And that's what the point Alakshit was also making, that you have to have various parts of it. In the first instance, it may look, wow, DMP itself is quite complex, and there's a DSP, and then there are so many different ways of bidding and all that. So it is complex, no doubt about it. It is quite complex. The good news is that the supply side of this handling this complexity has also been trying quite hard, and they have been trying to make things simple. So today, thanks to some of that part of the industry developing, while programmatic is complex, as a user, you don't find it so complex because there are partners around. There are agencies, there are publishers who are also playing around. And again, giving an example from a BFSI perspective, today, if I want to, and we do this, if you want to go for somebody who is searching for the product, loan, life insurance, whatsoever, and we want to give, and I know the audience profile broadly, and that is what a differentiated, creative message has to go on YouTube. Today, it is possible to do that. With that piece out. So that's where I think at BFSI, while programmatic is complex, but thanks to the development of the ecosystem, we are able to use it more from a marketing, objective point of view. So kind of feeling like a pilot sometime with a very complex set of buttons in front of you, but your job is to then take it off and make it reach the right destination. So that's where complexity is good, and I think taking us into the right direction. That's what I'll say.
Super, thank you. Moving to the consumer goods section, Altamash, do you think that there is a difference from a BFSI perspective, or does the basic still remains the same in terms of complexity of including programmatic into your media funnel, so to speak?
So complexity remains, right? What Manish said is completely that there is complexity in this form of medium, but what it does to us from a consumer good perspective or from an advertiser's perspective is that it helps us define the audiences much better. It gives us an opportunity to do that precise level of segmentation of audiences, and then which further adds on to building the right communication strategies for a right communication approaches for each set of audiences. Just like to give an example, if I have to talk today to a pregnant woman versus a mom who has a 5 or 7 year old kid, today, thanks to the backend and the complexity on multiple data signals coming in, which defines the audience into multiple buckets, from the programmatic front end as an advertiser point of view, we can select that set of audiences and now craft our communication very precisely to that set of audiences. So from a consumer good perspective, when we want to be more relevant, want to give right direct messages to the right core or set of audiences, it definitely helps. So the complexity helps us give us that output. It definitely helps in that. And the second part of it is an automation process, the entire automation process. So while all of this which we do in terms of targeting, in terms of defining cohorts, in terms of setting KPIs as well, the entire process is automated. So at backend, it is very complex. If you define a KPI of driving a certain sales purchase or driving a certain website visit, or you want to make people watch a video to a certain level of completion rate, you can define those KPIs and let the algorithm in the system at the back end do that level of optimization to give you that delivery. So from the automation process, from the defining the audience in the right segment, it definitely helps us, make the, the marketing efforts or initiative on the digital very, very precise for us. And that's where, the backend complexity is actually adding and helping us. It makes the life of an advertiser really, really easy. While at the back end, there are multiple hands who are actually, making it happen for us.
Great, superb. We'll stick with the same question, but a little bit for Priyanka's and Shashishekhar's perspective. Priyanka, we can go with you in terms of, we know that for a fact that most of FMCG, when you look at a media plan, the objective would be, of course, mostly reach and awareness being the overall objective. How does programmatic, the entire complexity of that, does it feature in terms of the media mix? Is it there as a prominent part, or has the metric changed from your perspective? Is it still reach that we look at with programmatic, or is there anything else that goes down?
Yeah. So like I was saying, right, it is helping us do the top, middle, and bottom funnel. And that is something what Shashi also sort of echoed. I think the shift is, we are becoming outcome based. I think the mindset is changing to KPIs. So while reach and, reach would be still an awareness. For awareness, you would still do reach frequency, and you would do that, you would want to look at a unified reach, use multiple platforms to deliver, a goal like that. When it comes to, let's say, consideration or middle to sort of purchase-led, funnels, there you would want, you can optimize for, different KPIs, whether it's interactions, whether it is, a call to action, that you want to take. And I think that is the shift that programmatic is enabling us to do. I think the mindset is changing significantly from, a few KPIs and reach awareness to KPIs across the funnel. And so that we are learning. I think we are all learning and evolving, so it'll be a learning journey throughout. But I think the focus, of KPIs is where it is making the most significant change. And of course, others have raised the point on audiences and the usefulness of getting segments. But I think at the end of it, what it is really enabling us to do, and what is very classic, advertising principle, was get the right message at the right time and the right moment. I think, earlier that was always, we wanted to do that, but there was never a solution to do that. Now we actually, through programmatic, can actually, deliver a solution like that. So the complexity is there. Of course, you need to have messaging like that. You need to segment a plan like that, and you need to deploy it like that. And then, of course, you need to measure outcomes. All of it is then, how is it working is all outcome based. But it all sort of helps to drive, I think, more tangible goals and is making that mindset change for us.
Super, great. Shashi, anything that you want to add to that? What Priyanka is saying from a consumer perspective?
So I think, I'll tell you the starting point for us, so the programmatic strategy is basically coming out of the consumer journey that, you have seen for your consumers, right? And I think that's the starting point. And therefore we look at sort of, KPIs. And, yes, as I said, in 2018, when we started, 17, 18, when we started programmatic, it was primarily reach based, that, unified reach, putting a frequency cap. But now, for example, we have a D2C store. I have signals coming in from there. I have cart abandonment rates. I have a CRM program, right? I have a one party data for my own consumers. So I know these signals, and then these signals then can actually, be used to actually figure out people in the consideration phase, and as well as the bottom funnel. So I think the journey has been interesting, but I think the more closer we get to the consumer journey, because I think that this is an iterative process. Consumers are increasingly behaving very differently on different platforms, on different products. Even in when I look at the Reckitt sort of brands, different products will have a different consumer journey. So I think that is an iterative process, but the framework typically is working for the last 2 years and just getting better at that, I think. So yes, always in beta, I would say, the programmatic, but testing and learning as we go along.
Great, good. So moving on, I think when you segment the entire programmatic platform, mobile definitely stands out, and doing programmatic on a mobile platform, and that's the definitely future for digital advertising, and more so with definitely the OTT platforms that have actually come up, and the kind of adoption of that. We see a lot of OTT platforms also going into programmatic, and rather than direct buys that used to happen a couple of years back. Even not very long time back. So how do you think, let's say, from a mobile programmatic platform specific to mobile, how it'll shape the for your brand? So anyone can go. Manish, would you like to go for it?
Yeah, sure, Suraj. I think mobile advertising today helps us to reach the customers right when it is the most useful for the customer and the brand. So very, very relevant moments. And I'll tell you some things that that are quite obvious. For example, affordable smartphones, cheap data, exciting content, vernacular language. All of this has led to the eyeballs going on the mobile and the advertising following the same. But what we have found is something very interesting in terms of buying behavior. So earlier, the buying behavior was that I am consuming media, but I will go to the store and buy. So those are slightly disconnected.
Yeah.
The right impressions are there in my mind to come into picture when I am in front of the aisle to buy the right product. Then it moved to many a times buying on a laptop or something, which still is away from the media consumption many times. What mobile has done is that at the time when you are consuming the content and hence advertising, you have the power to convert it into a purchase. Now, this is very relevant for both the brand and the customer. I think because of this particular aspect of the mobile, which is kind of connecting the marketer into the entire scheme of mobile revolution, I think mobile programmatic will shape the advertising in the coming times in a big way.
Yeah, great, thank you. Lakshit, from a ad tech perspective, what do you think from specifically for mobile? How does it? How does programmatic help brands apart from the regular bells and whistles? What do you see that's actually happening?
So mobile is slightly advanced of a technology in terms of how we are handling things, right? So in the desktop or a laptop world, it used to be, and I'm going to talk only about the digital world for a minute. It used to be on the cookie-based tracking of things, right? And
Yeah.
we have moved away from it. We are looking at device IDs, etc. Now these help in two ways, right? So the ownership of these device IDs can be at multiple places. Unlike the cookie in the cookie world, now the advertiser has the entire pool of device IDs and can track these device IDs at different segments, right? The device ID remains the unique point for a user. Now that builds the entire consumer journey together. So at one point of time, for example, you knew that this is a dishwash, right? It is a liquid dishwash. It's a bar dishwash, but mostly you would be targeting the same users because the means that you had were the same. Right now with mobile, you can definitely look at who in your household is consuming that, right? So if it's an upcoming generation, or if it's a Gen Z, Gen Y, they might be looking for a liquid hand wash, but a more traditional lady would be more comfortable with the soap bar, right? So you can make those distinctions because of that hyper personalization that was there. Every other device was a shared device to a certain extent. This is very personal to a user. So that makes all that difference, and the tech enables it.
Great. Yeah. Altamash, from a consumer perspective, how important is the mobile part for programmatic?
So I'll just continue with what Alakshit said. That one is that we know that we are moving from that cookie-based world to the device IDs-based world. Okay, which changed a lot of things. Now earlier, when one user had 3 or 4 identifiers in form of cookies, in form of different identifiers, which is getting unified, and thanks to the mobile, that you have that one single view of the consumer. Like this is the device ID which X user is using. And then you can do a multiple level of enhancement in terms of the campaign, in terms of the communication, in terms of targeting point of view. Another aspect of it which is very important is that because we know that the scale which mobile advertising can bring in, it also changed the creative approach which the advertisers now have to look into it. It no more can be an approach where you have your one master creative which can be then adapted into multiple formats. When you know that your maximum audiences are now on this a device, and it is a device which they are carrying all throughout the day, you will have to, probably advertiser has to start thinking from the perspective of saying that how do I now reach out to our audiences in a messaging format which is more apt for the screen which he is viewing it. So be it the transformation which we have seen from the in terms of adaptation of creative from say being horizontal to vertical format. Now vertical has become a very important format. Like you have so many advertisers on programmatic buying that that people are consuming content on a vertical screen. Now that is, if that's an important input which you get from the world, you have to optimize the creative for that kind of viewing. So creative will play a very strong role along with the buying part of it, and definitely the one view moving from key-based to device IDs is what the biggest change which will continue and probably make our communications and our advertising efforts more and more precise.
Great, thank you. I'll come to Priyanka and Shashishekhar in a bit. Om, are you there? I think you've just joined us.
Yeah, hi, Suraj. So sincere apologies. I don't know why, but I was facing a tech issue while getting into a tech event. So,
happens. Yeah. It happens to the best of us. So great. I thank you for joining us. It's really, we were just discussing certain parts in terms of how programmatic has evolved. And we were talking about right now the question in terms of in programmatic, how mobile is very, very important and how that game has changed for programmatic itself and for consumers and for brands. So I would like to know a little bit of your thoughts as well.
Yeah, sure. I think the most interesting part of course, marketing is a very exciting profession, and I think digital is an even more exciting part of the marketing things that all of us do over here. And what makes digital more interesting is somewhere, what Gordon Moore said about in the Moore's law, that every 2 years the number of transistors in a dense circuit would keep doubling. Now that's what happens around us. So I was there in the beginning, and then I subsequently got locked out. Somebody was saying that 10 years back when programmatic had started in US, we were waiting when it would come to India. Yeah. And something similar we have seen all across in mobile telephony, like from 2G, we leapfrog to 4G. I think the same thing is happening in the programmatic ecosystem also. From desktop, we move to mobiles, kind of leapfrog, and leapfrog how. The beauty is that digital, when it started, and even now, it's a complex ecosystem, and any complex ecosystem would create its own challenges in terms of brand safety issues, ad fraud, and so many more things keep coming in. Viewability used to be a huge challenge, and you would hear that was the ad viewable, was it not viewable? There used to be a lot of debate and a lot of consternation between the agencies, the advertisers, and the publishers. Happen even now, but significantly reduced. I think a lot of credit for that goes to mobile programmatic, because what happens on mobile is that most of the inventories that you serve on are in the in-app environment, and that brings a controlled environment where you can control a lot of stuff. Even the publisher has a better control. So quite a few problems which used to plague programmatic advertising earlier, that's getting solved largely because of mobile getting more and more prevalent, and as a device or as a medium where ads are getting served. So definitely mobile programmatic has solved a lot of problems, and I see going further, this would create even better systems, processes, and controls for the digital advertising.
Great, thank you. Priyanka, so I think a couple of questions back you briefly touched upon in terms of how programmatic helped in the top, middle, and bottom funnel. Would you be able to give certain examples in terms of how does it give value for Colgate-Palmolive in terms of the ads that you do?
Well, value, like I said, it's a learning process, right? And it's iterative, and we are continuously understanding the value of it. Like I said, in terms of tapping into the consumer journey, firstly, we are sort of looking at a consumer journey throughout. And what I think mobile has enabled it, I mean, firstly, see, mobile has been the heart of digital adoption in India. So, everything that is sort of overall for programmatic is equally important for mobile. But I mean, 3-4 areas where it sort of has made more of an impact is, one is, I guess, the device being with the person, right? An individual person. So, it's more personalization and scale. And also, you can actually, map a journey. You can connect with people through the day. So the ability to be able to do that through this, the signals that we get is one big sort of a thing for us. And the journey can start anywhere, right? It's somebody can go onto an e-commerce platform and get aware about a product, and then just go and buy it straight away, which is a simple sort of funnel to close. Whereas the journey could be as long as somebody seeing it on TV, going and searching for it, and then looking at maybe needing 3 to 4 more connections before deciding to buy. So I think that's the use case that that's where we see the future to be, and how good are we at tapping into this, through getting the right signals, getting the right messaging, and then looking for the right KPIs. Of course, the end goal for all businesses is to drive brand health and drive business. So if you ask me what is the North Star of KPIs, we are constantly trying to look at what could be the intervening metrics, which finally help us get to the overall sort of brand metrics. And I guess additionally, the signals that you get from mobile are richer. So over time, we will see more and more of these sort of, more and more abilities to target. And the other thing would be, the app ecosystem that mobile allows for, and therefore the possibilities for us to actually create owned sort of assets on mobile, which can further be our owned assets, which can become more a one-to-one engagement with the communities that we create, or the audiences that we really want to engage with. So that's where the future deeply lies. How do we sort of build these communities and
And then the third-party data goes into first-party data as well. So
yeah,
great, superb. Shashishekhar, from Reckitt's point of view, top, middle, and bottom funnel, where does programmatic's value fit in? Does it have all three funnels, or is it just top funnel, for example, from a BFSI, consumer perspective, consumer goods perspective?
Yes, hi. So, as I said, since since we started doing D2C, shops of our own, that actually gave us a lot of, understanding of the funnel, because we've all worked with, e-com partners. We don't get data, right?
Yeah.
The only way to sort of, get data is to sort of, have your own shop. And as I said, the signals, the either it is a D2C signal, either it is, people browsing your cart or buying certain things, or they are repeat buyers, or for example, a CRM program, which is a more strategic kind of a long-term, engagement with, for example, the one we run is for new and expecting mothers. Now, they actually give you a lot of rich signals. And I think for us, especially with mobile, I think the device ID is the boon, honestly, right? Yeah. How do you create your own first party data? I think these are interesting use cases that we have been seeing. And, basis that we can actually look at. So for example, if it's an awareness campaign, we will look at a broader funnel. The idea for us is to sort of, how do you keep pushing people from the top to middle to bottom funnel, right? And the KPI is pretty simple. The KPI is that, for each, so yes, it is sales at the end of the day, but also, for example, for each reach or consideration, we are also looking at individual KPIs at that function, right? So for example, engagement becomes a bigger function for me in the consideration phase, not so much of reach, because I've already pushed them, from top to middle. So from there, I need to just, give it a push, either it's a coupon code, this, that, and that's how sort of, it slows down. So I feel programmatic with mobile is definitely important. And also when I look at the transacting audience, 7 on 10 people are from mobile.
Yeah.
From my industry, right? And but yes, definitely, because you need to see, for example, moment you think mobile, you can't put a 20-second TVC or a 30-second TVC on the platforms, right? So there is a very different way of looking at what kind of content repurposing you would do, what are the formats which are best working, and a lot of tools like a Nielsen DAR or Om spoke about viewability. I think that is the metric with which we look at the reports, and we are able to sort of pick and choose or prioritize certain publishers basis who's giving a higher VCPM, lower VCPM, etc. So I think that those are the tools we use to stay on track, I'd say. Yeah.
Super, great. Again, staying with this top, middle, and bottom funnel, wanted to just get Manish's point of view from a BFSI perspective, because I know for a fact I've managed quite a lot of BFSI clients wherein we programmatic pretty much was always the bottom part of the funnel for a very long time, but I think over a period of time that has evolved. But from ICICI's perspective, has that changed, Manish? Or is it still at the bottom funnel wherein we look at end result for ICICI?
No, it has changed quite a bit. And as I think Priyanka was mentioning, it's a learning journey for all of us. So yes, bottom funnel takes the first instance because that's the best place to see the value. And programmatic is actually helping us deliver value to the customer, depending on where the customer also is in the equation. Right. Again, I'll start with the bottom funnel because that's the most easy to understand. And there also there is progress that has happened. So somebody who is on a buying journey and is kind of dropping off at a particular place, a customized creative or a video of 3-5 second or 6 second can be delivered to this customer to help him or her make the decision, in a good way. And that is something where the value gets delivered. But the definition of value changes when it comes to the middle and the top funnel, because somebody who is exploring is slightly engaging. That person may not be definitely is not going to buy. So providing the right content for this kind of a customer is where we have migrated to the middle funnel as well. And the top funnel, I think, is more about the choice, the reach, the consideration, where the fundamental to some of the programmatic work is the audience profiling. And today, as I think Alakshit was saying, the device ID, the geographical ID, in many cases, it's also kind of a different ways to say not only similar audience, but also similar income audience, for example. So even at the top of the funnel, income, geography, device, time of the day, etc., allows you to reach the different kind of customers to drive the fundamentals of brand awareness and consideration. So BFSI has definitely moved rather from the top to the bottom. It is moving from bottom to the top.
Top now, yeah, great.
But value today is getting delivered at all fronts.
Super. Altamash, moving on to the next question in terms of, we'll start with you from an offline and online data sources that is there. So how does it help or enhance programmatic and the ROI perspective of programmatic when you get data that is there from offline sources as well and from online sources as well? Is that
definitely, like, data, especially any form of data, like, it definitely helps you to get into and do a much deeper and a better analysis. But especially from the offline perspective, like, any consumer data which is, say, a PII level data or personal information about the user, which you can tap in from your offline sources, be it, say, on pack, have a QR code on pack where you can get some information about the user who's purchased your product. There's a gold mine, like, you know that this is the XYZ people who have actually purchased my product now. And those kind of offline data from your CRM teams, from your research teams, where you know that these are your purchase audiences, it makes a huge impact. And especially when we look at from the Godrej point of view, we have been tapping into and collecting a lot of this first party data which are at a PII level. And with our own internal DMP setup and enrichment setup, we try to analyze and see where are these audiences actually doing, what are the other cohorts, other relevance, building affinities which we can tap into. Like, is there other segments which we can actually tap into? Like, just to give an example, like, when we looked at only the data of Goodnight Gold Flash data, where, our maximum TG which we cater to are female mothers who we talk to. But the moment we looked at a PII data where there was a consumer on-pack offer and the amount of data which we collected, like, we got to see that more than 30-40% are male users who have actually registered the product, who have actually purchased the product. And that gives us a very different perspective of saying that how do we now talk to fathers as well? While mothers are important, but how do we talk to fathers now? What are other segments and affinities which will help us, build reach or, have more relevance building for a brand? So definitely offline to online data is a gold mine, especially when it comes to your, own purchase audience data.
Om, from a Pepsi's perspective, because I know that there is a huge amount, same like for Colgate as well, there's a huge amount of offline data that is lying there, and which from an agency point of view and from a marketing point of view, we all use. But are you able to integrate that to online data and from a programmatic perspective and bring some kind of ROI output from a programmatic perspective? Is there anything that you can share on that?
Yeah, I think data, be it offline or online, data itself is an extremely powerful weapon. And the challenges which emerge for an FMCG player is unlike someone who's in BFSI or maybe telecom, where consumers come and give their data to you, rather than we are on the other end of the spectrum where consumers are extremely reserved when it comes to sharing their data with us, because there's no reason. Once you want me to drink a cold drink now, and chalo swag sami bana diya, but that's it. Yeah, don't ask me for my mobile number, right, or my email ID. Sorry, that's of no use to you, and I don't want to share it with you. So, but what we also realized is that there are two parts to it. One, as Altamash was also talking about, is that one is insights. That when you know your consumers, for that you need some bit of PII, and there it helps. But what we have decided is that in our business, we can try and use surrogates for PII, not collect PII on our own, and try and rely on the researchers and all the other interactions, one-to-one interactions, limited in number, but still to make our insights richer, which would inspire our creative and strategy and thinking and so on. But when it comes to media, what we have been trying to do is to build data first-party data, which is not PII, but still personal information. So, and the law of the land also is more compliant and more lenient towards that rather than towards PII. So that's what we are working on. We definitely see a very, very strong case for building first-party data, and it has to feed into the programmatic trading setup, where it would bring its own use cases. One of the biggest use cases, which I think all of us have been trying to crack here, is that all of us want to build incremental reach. We don't want to show our ad for the 18th time on YouTube to the same consumer. We want that second consumer to watch that 18th impression which is going. And that in a market like India, which is heavily fragmented, where every other day there is a new OTT coming in and claiming to have 25, 50, 30, 100 million consumers. How do you plan? How do you try and make sure that across the platforms you are not getting into catering to duplicated audiences, but trying to get unique reach? That's where this kind of a setup, if you've got data to go with you can definitely try and target them on one-to-one basis. And for that, building your own data is very important. That's why, in Gurgaon, we have this BYOB, bring your own booze, but it's like BYOD, bring your own data. Sorry, boss, nobody is going to give you. Nobody is willing to partner with the data. So it's a journey that one has to embark upon. Every organization has to embark upon, and the sooner you start, the better.
Great. Superb. So just taking from there, Alakshit, from InMobi's perspective, are you as a product, is it able to much more easier now to integrate multiple data sets, which is either offline and online for a better output or ROI from a programmatic perspective?
Sure. So for us, the offline and online slightly is different, right? So for a brand, it might be what happens in the store and what kind of PII they can collect. We totally rely on digital sources for all that, right? That doesn't mean that we do not try to capture the offline data. Location is a very strong signal, right? So suppose you want to know in an ambient small Gurgaon, I want to know that what has been the behavior like of those users. So I can probably track that location signal of every user that comes in and goes out of ambient small. And then basically I can find out what has been their other behavior. So the offline to online mapping for me happens in that certain fashion, right? For example, if you want to measure footfall in a particular store of yours, right? Or a particular insurance office that ICICI might own, we can do that, right? So all that happens. Especially on the market research side, it is playing out very nicely, right? So you do the focus group studies in the offline world, but as soon as you have figured out that these are the key areas that you want to look at, right, then you move the entire market research to the online media. Right? Yeah. So it's not the data in terms of the PII that's passing on, but it's all such information, right, that is getting passed on in that fashion, and then you are marrying the two in the best possible way.
Great, thank you. Shashishekhar, from this perspective, offline, online, to drive a particular ROI perspective, what's your take?
So Suraj, I think for us it is at the moment we are focusing only on online, as I said, because we are there are various sources of data that we have. So the idea is to actually we are creating a data lake, which is a unified view of all the data, right? But I think as Om also suggests, was talking about that. See, the online offline sources, for us also, because we do not have even our offline shops, they are all fragmented. We don't have it's not a modern trade in US that all the data sort of gets passed back. So there's always be a last mile connectivity issue that we'll have, especially when we're talking about mass FMCG brands like ours. So I think for now the focus is on online sources, and the focus is actually getting close to the PII information, especially because that is the core audience that Reckitt talks to. So and also once you have the PII, it actually becomes quite an efficient exercise. It's a long run procedure, but it's an efficient exercise that how are you sort of using these data sources amongst each other, even in the set of brands. So for example, we have a 12 brands that primarily talks to a similar kind of audiences. I wouldn't say same, but very similar kind of audiences. So how do we use the intelligence from one brand and sort of start leveraging, cross leveraging between brands? So I think focus is actually that, to create like a unified view of the consumer and only online at the moment.
Yeah. Priyanka, from a Colgate-Palmolive's perspective, I mean, the distribution is very, very, I mean, it's huge, right, for you guys. So does the offline and online handshake happen a little bit more easier, or is it more difficult to have a particular ROI outcome or a data outcome from Colgate's perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a spectrum of offline data, right? One is, of course, a whole lot of consumer work that do, right? It's always been at the heart of our business. So we have a lot of that, but that's, secondary data, and we use all those of insights. And then we find, use those insights to find audiences or the closest match online. So that's one sort of a connection of offline and online, and that is continuously sort of getting, better. The other spectrum is, how are we using our activations and media to sort of get data? So many times when you do a consumer engagement program and people interact with us either through a missed call or, participate in the contest, how do we use some of those signals then to sort of, either retarget or, use that audience data, for other objectives. Then online, there are these, I mean, of course, we are retargeting, looking at people who've seen a particular communication, are in a certain journey, and looking at those audiences and data segments. So all of these are online. Of course, the biggest, I think, weapon, or let's say the touch point that we have as large brands are our packs that are sold offline. Unfortunately, the last mile data is not sort of easily available, but we are looking at potentially how do we integrate that. So we have now started putting out QR codes on the pack. And there is a focus, and an effort and a program in place. How do we use pack as a point of contact to start building a community and getting data and, build a value exchange for the consumer. So, setting up a CRM program, and giving value to consumers, and pack being a big touch point. And, likewise, there'll be other such touch points, that we will look at. Like I was saying, we're also launching some products. We recently launched a toothpaste for diabetes. Right. Now here, the importance of getting data and personalized data to be actually able to, get to the right person is going to be extremely important. So that's where the focus will be, to get, more valuable data, offer them a value exchange, and understand them better, so that you can sort of, look at building a more relevant consumer journey and understanding the journey throughout.
Superb, great. So with that, we'll come to the last question, which is in terms of what is the future of programmatic? What are the biggest trends that you guys see that programmatic would have in the future? Is it more very integrated with OTT? And I think we can start off with Alakshit, because you are from the industry. We would like to hear from you first, like, in terms of what is the future of programmatic from a trends perspective, what we can see maybe a couple of months or a year down the line.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of things. I think data is also one of the trends that are emerging. But in terms of the media, if I look at, right, so there are two things that look like they are picking up and they have a huge uptick. That is gaming and that is video, right? People get hooked onto these things. For example, you had a huge vacuum after TikTok went out, right? And then you have a series of players who have come in and trying to fill up that vacuum, because the customer has decided that they would consume short form videos. They want the video not to last more than 10 seconds or 15 seconds, right? So that's the mindset that has been built now. Now that will not discontinue. Even if the services discontinue, the other services will come and fill in that space. Similar is the space of gaming, right? So the users during the lockdown started playing a lot of mobile game. That never died down, right? That the streak continued, and you have a good more than 50% of the audience available on gaming as a platform, and it will continue to grow, right? So those are the two big trends. Other than that, there are other industry trends that we are seeing, that everyone is looking to build their own DMP. There is D2C setup that everyone is getting involved at, and which everyone else can talk better about, I think.
Sure, great. Altamash, from your perspective, what's the trends that will come up?
Right. So I think I'll just add to what Alakshit was saying, that apart from gaming, video, OTT, and other regional players, I think the new trend is that other media formats also now which can be bought programmatically. So be it audio, we've seen in last one and a half year how audio programmatic has actually gone up high scale. Even we've seen that there are players you can now buy digital OOS through programmatic. So the sooner the trend will be that more media formats now can be bought programmatically, which makes give us that one unified platform for purchase point of view. Yes, there is another very big trend which we see, that how do we use programmatic to build personalization communication at scale and quickly. So how do you deploy personalized communication to a wide set of audiences on a almost on a real-time basis? That's, I think, a trend which is upcoming and which will continue. And definitely what Alakshit said, that there are a lot of brands who have their own DMP, and so that's in-house capability building. That will be definitely at a brand side. A lot of capability building will happen in-house, where understanding of the DMP to DSP connection, or the DSP to SSP connection, how this entire things work, how we started our entire panel discussion. That it's complex from behind, but I think now it's going to be something which all brands will want to understand in detail and have much more control over it, and that's going to be a trend to look up.
Thank you. Manish, any closing comments in terms of the future?
I see there are three trends, and I think two of them have been spoken. So one is the audience trend, where there is going to be interesting times ahead, because there'll be various pools of audience data, and not every pool will talk to each other. There'll be a separate publisher pool which will not talk to some ad exchange or something.
Yeah.
Second thing is more in the media piece, which I think has been spoken by Alakshit also, which is where more connected TV, audio, out of home, etc. are the trends that are coming in. And the third trend that I see is where I think a lot of marketers will need to learn is to put the art on it, the creative trend in programmatic, which is right now the creative trend is mostly spoken about in terms of shortening of the duration. So no longer 20 seconds, give me 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds. But there has to be a creative, masala coming into the whole piece for the audience to also enjoy the process as much. So to me, trends are mostly in this audience, media, and creative.
Great, thank you. Om, closing comments in terms of the trends?
Yeah, sure. I think all of it has been spoken. One thing which I find very troubling about programmatic, though, is that programmatic in India, which is quite unlike other markets, is DV360, right? Yeah. You hardly have any other DSP which is as prevalent in India. But if you go to, say, Southeast Asian markets, my counterparts there, when I discuss with them, they are using Trade Desk, they're using AppNexus, they're using whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think for this evolution to happen a little more rapidly on this side, I think the hegemony of DV360 has to kind of been unshackled by the players, and that would happen with more people coming in, more entities like the Trade Desk, AppNexus, TubeMogul becoming bigger, and that would definitely enrich. I think that would solve for a lot of issues which Manish just talked about. All those three aspects would get sorted the moment the hegemony gets over, because quite a things you can imagine very difficult to execute.
True. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Priyanka. Any last closing comments?
Yeah, so a lot have been spoken about. I'll talk about two things maybe. One is, I think, just a step change in personalization at scale. I mean, I think what is the future is, actually people getting different messages. It's not about, and how do you sort of, excel in the art of doing that, because people will only want relevant and personalized, experiences. That's one. Second, I think more from our lens is, how do we, commerce is a big channel for us to get data, and help us across the funnel. So e-commerce and commerce, and there are now e-commerce players who are, who have launched their DSPs. So a scaling up of that and actually, using that to help us, complete the funnel are areas, I think, where we will see a lot more action.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Shashishekhar, last closing comments in terms of the future.
Yeah, so I think I can speak about the CPG industry because the way that the things are moving, especially with the phasing out of the cookies, right? So I think increasingly people are gonna invest in creating their own data capabilities in-house. That's one that I'll see, and of course mass personalization. Priyanka kind of spoke of, and personalization at scale is really the key. The last one, which is partly solved by programmatic, is how do you see a unified funnel, right? Now, because there are different ecosystems. For example, there will be some advertising happening on the Amazon, right? That's a separate funnel. There is a separate funnel that the brand digital marketing will do. That's a separate funnel. So how do you actually look at a unified funnel is by actually having a common denominator of or a common data lake, so as to find, and so that you are able to find those consumers and look at a mapping outside. So I think a unified funnel is something that is, I think, very critical, because most of the companies do not have a holistic view of the data. Especially they have like 2-3 different funnels to look at, but not really like one. Especially in, and talking about only FMCGs, not where most of the bottom funnel happens. But here, as I said, it's most of consideration reach. But I think that's where I feel the real synergies has to come, and programmatic has a big and a huge role to play there.
Super, great. Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions from the audience. I'll just read it out and I'll point it out at to some of you. So I think one of them asked, saying that how do you tackle ad fraud, fake impressions, and viewability on digital? I will direct that to Alakshit from a product perspective, because we guys from ad and consumer perspective know quite a bit, but from a product perspective, what's InMobi is doing for these for this question that is there: fraud, impression, fake impressions.
Sure. So viewability, etc. So it's a viewability and in target, etc. I'll keep it in one bucket, and I would keep the fraud in a very different bucket, right? So viewability, etc. is being solved for. At times, how we are deploying the ad and how the measurability tools are measuring it, there can be certain amount of disconnect in that. So we have to come together and solve for those things. So those get sorted. And as far as I speak about InMobi, we are doing 90% over viewability in the mode and IAS measurements, right? But fraud is a very different game, right? It's a cat and mouse game that we play, right? So if you are getting to know that there is fraud, that's also a very good enough position to be in, right? Otherwise, you would not have known that there is fraud and it's going all over the places. It's about the same, the crime rate going up or down in a city, right? So do you take it as a good thing, or do you take it as a bad thing?
Great, thank you. The next question is, as FMCG brand, everyone is your audience. How do you segment audience for programmatic buying? Anyone can go for it. Priyanka, I think yours one of the brands that everybody uses. So
like I had said that, we have mainstream brands, and then we have brands that are, that are for specific benefits. So the segmentation is, based on brand and brand objectives. For example, we have a whitening toothpaste. Like I said, we're launching a Colgate for diabetes. We're launching a, toothpaste for kids. When you look at kids, we're trying to look at, you need different kinds of toothpaste across, age groups, for toddlers, for 2 to 4, 5 to 6. So here, we would want to look for audiences or mothers, who are in the relevant sets. So it is, for different brands and segments. I think the journey or the change is that for mainstream brands, I think targeting is still more broad-based, whereas there are huge opportunities emerging for, building either premium segments or smaller segments, or more sort of, a niche.
Or for like the new brand, for diabetic.
Or things that appeal to, a certain audience, and therefore, how do you sort of segment for that?
Yeah, superb, great. And the final question, I think,
I just want to add an example to what Priyanka was saying, that, even from Godrej perspective, home insecticide, we have 2 big brands, Goodnight, who is also a mosquito repellent, and Hit, which is also into a mosquito solution. And from us, it also becomes very important that, we differentiate our audiences basis what brand, which audiences speak to. And one of the ways which helps us do is that, we don't want to reach out to pregnant women and moms with infants and toddlers with a product as Kala Hit. So if we can identify that set of audiences where we don't want to have that kind of product being advertised to them, we can differentiate that, and those becomes a core set of audiences where we want to talk to them with good night and the most natural and other range of product which is safe for around kids and all. So that's how programmatically we are able to also differentiate. I'll just give that example.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Great. And I think one of the final questions is, do you see programmatic will become the norm for digital media? Will everything, all digital media planning and buying, will it happen through programmatic? I think, Om, since you missed out a couple of questions, I think I'll leave that to you, and let me your point of view. Will that be the norm, or do you see that we will still do specific buys with specific channels, digital or otherwise?
Yeah, I think the short answer to that is yes. In due course of time, I think I can envisage a day when even television would be bought programmatically. But yeah, definitely on digital, everything would move to programmatic, and it should. There's no reason why it should not. There would be a few deals here and there which would happen. It would depend from the appetite of the advertiser, but largely it would all move to programmatic.
Great, superb. Superb. Thank you so much, everybody. I think we had a great time. I really had an amazing time talking to everybody. And I think I'm sure the users and everybody there, we are live on YouTube as well. I really appreciate your time and effort. And if you need anything, I think you guys can get in touch with us on LinkedIn. So I shall see you. Thank you so much.
Well done. I think very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
so
much
much
for being part of this event.